Welcome to At Home with Music. In my last video, I promised that we had one more song to look at as we talk about modes. Talked about songs that use modes, but also would switch to a regular diatonic key and then perhaps back to the mode. And so this particular song that I want to look at today is a perfect example of this, and it was written by Paul Simon. Most of you know who he is. He, of course, was part of Simon and Garfunkel for many years, and then when Simon and Garfunkel broke up, he went on to a very successful solo career, which continues to this day. He had some interesting things to say about songwriting. In fact, there's a book I want to recommend to you. Got it right here. This is by a fellow named Paul Zollo. And what he did was he went and interviewed several famous songwriters, people like Bob Dylan, Randy Newman, Neil Young, Tom Petty, Sammy Cahn. If you don't know who Sammy Cahn is, you should look him up. He's a fascinating character. Leonard Cohen, well, I'm just reading from the cover here. And actually what the book I have is an older edition of this book. I believe there is a newer edition out, maybe even a couple of ones beyond this, that even more songwriters. And it's fascinating to hear what all these guys have to say, all these men and women, I should say, have to say about songwriting. Now, he had a very interesting question that he asked Paul Simon. He interviewed him a few times in the early 90s, and I'm looking for the page here, talking about music theory. So he asked Paul Simon, "Do you think a technical knowledge of music theory is important for songwriters?" And Paul Simon replied, "It can't hurt. It can help. Yeah, there are some problems that you solve by information that a teacher can give you. You'll have a much harder time solving those problems without that information. You might solve them anyway, but why reinvent the wheel when the information is there?" And if you listen to some of Paul Simon's work, especially his later work, a song like Still Crazy After All These Years, for example, there's some very sophisticated chord changes in there. And he had actually been studying theory and harmony at the time that he was writing those songs. And so you can hear that influence in his work. Maybe you want to be a creative musician, write a song, or be able to analyze a song. That's where a knowledge of music theory can be very helpful. And of course, in studying modes, that's part of music theory. So we're looking at a song that he wrote fairly early in his career. He was still a young man. This song, of course, became a big hit, and that song is The Sound of Silence. Now, some people want to call this The Sounds of Silence, but it really is just one sound as far as I know. Super popular song. It pops up in a lot of memes, whenever something happens to somebody in the meme and they look sad, and then you hear the opening lines of "Hello, darkness, my old friend." I don't know if Paul Simon appreciates being used in those type of memes, but nevertheless, the song pops up all the time when you want to express despair and discouragement and so on. But anyway, my purpose here is not to analyze the lyric, because I'm not really a lyricist. I am more of a composer and a melody writer, and I think this song is fascinating in that it is very simple. It uses modes, it uses diatonic keys, but it's also very interesting to listen to. So anyway, let's take a look at it. What I've given you here is a lead sheet, but it's just the melody and the chords. I left out the lyrics because we're not going to really be paying attention to the lyrics in this video. So notice I didn't put a key signature in there, but if you look at some sheet music for this song, you'll find they give it 1 flat, which puts it in the key of, as you see the first chord there, D minor. Now, I've left the key signature off on purpose because we're looking at it from what modes is Paul Simon employing here, and it's very simple what he does, but then you'll see later on he changes to a key. So we start out. Notice how the melody outlines the D minor chord, but notice the next chord. Right away, you know that we are not in D minor proper, but we are in D Dorian. How do we know that? Well, remember the D Dorian scale. That C should give it away. When we construct a chord on every note of D Dorian, the seventh chord is C major, which resolves back to D minor. And then you see what the melody does in the next measure, outlines the C major chord, and leads us back to D minor. But now look what happens in the next measure. Okay, we go to F major. We're still technically in the Dorian mode, but the next chord is B flat. B flat is not part of the Dorian mode series of chords. The sixth note in the Dorian mode is B natural. And so you end up with this diminished chord. But here we've got B flat. And then see where it resolves from B flat to F. Now it sounds like we're in the key of F major, and this is a plagial, an amen cadence. So it's a very natural transition from the mode to the major key. In fact, most people listening to this song wouldn't even realize what happened there. They would just say, oh, that sounds really nice. And it's an interesting songwriting technique in that the song starts out sounding kind of dark, but then it brightens up because we're now in a major key. And then it repeats again. Oh, one other thing I wanted to point out. You notice if you listen to a recording of the song and they get to that F major chord and they're singing it, the rhythm sounds like this. But the sheet music, and this is copied directly from the sheet music, simplifies it. Sounds kind of stiff now. The reason they do that, you look at a lot of sheet music for popular songs, you'll find that the rhythm, if you read it exactly like a classical pianist would, it comes out very stiff. It doesn't sound right. They know, that the publishers of this sheet music, they know that you have listened to this song before you tried to play it. Very few of us who play popular songs, and that includes myself, we always listen to a recording of it and then look at the sheet music, and that helps us remember how it goes. But we don't play it exactly as written. Well, I'm playing it exactly as written because I'm demonstrating the chord progressions. Anyway, that's just a little tangent that I went off on there, a little side note. So notice now we're in the key of F, and we're using this plagial cadence, and we use it again. We got that 2/4 measure, and then we're back to the B flat. And then using this as a common tone, we go back to the D minor. And then back to F. When you hit the C major chord, suddenly we're back in the Dorian mode. So it's interesting how smoothly this song changes from the Dorian mode to the key of F major using only plagial cadences, and then it very smoothly shifts right back to the Dorian mode. And then, of course, when you listen to this song, you notice that it's the same thing repeated for each new verse. And because the lyrics are so interesting, and because Simon and Garfunkel's harmonies are so beautiful, it never gets boring or sounds repetitive. It's a masterpiece in pop songwriting, and so it's no surprise that a song like this has become eternally popular and pops up everywhere. So that's just one example of a popular song that uses a mode, in this case the D Dorian mode, changes to a major key, in this case the key of F major, never uses a traditional cadence. You don't hear, or this. It's all plagial cadences, or going from the 7 of the D Dorian mode back to the minor chord, the 1. Anyway, I hope you found this interesting. It'll help you when you're listening to other songs, learning where the chord progressions go, and saying, they used a mode there, and then they switched to a key, and then back to a mode. Or maybe you find some songs that are completely in a particular mode. Thanks again for watching. If you have any questions or comments, you can leave those in the comment section below. I look forward to speaking to you in the next one.